Welcome to the Wolverine Confidential podcast brought to you by Corewell Health. I am Andrew Kahn.
I'm Ryan Zook.
And I'm Aaron McMahon.
The Michigan men's basketball team lost for the first time, a surprising home defeat to Wisconsin. The football team has been very busy in the transfer portal. We discuss all of that, plus women's hoops and hockey, coming up on Wolverine Confidential. All right, guys, good to be with you here Monday morning, January 12th. A lot of games to talk about on the court and the ice, and then off-field news for Michigan football. We'll start with hoops because it was, a bit of a stunner. The Michigan men's basketball team lost on Saturday afternoon to Wisconsin, 91-88. Wisconsin just caught fire from three-point range. They made 15 of them in the game, 7 in a row to start the second half, and gain the lead. And it was back and forth from there. Really exciting, game, especially if you liked offense. But yeah, Michigan loses, and I just think that they're 14-0 coming in, number 2 in the country, almost a 20-point favorite in this game. But Wisconsin is the kind of team that is dangerous because they just shoot. They had shot so many threes coming in, almost half their shots from three, but they hadn't really been making a ton of them. So that's why, they were the underdog that they were, I guess, but they made them on Saturday, and that's how they pulled off the upset. Again, we kind of knew Michigan would lose at some point. You just didn't really think it'd be at home, right? That was maybe even the more surprising thing. The opponent adds to that, but it was just the fact that it was at home too.
Yeah, I think we were wondering if a team would come out and shoot well against Michigan, right? That seemed to be the recipe. If you're going to beat Michigan, you need to shoot really well, and Wisconsin certainly seemed to do that, right? 50% from the floor, 45% from three. They didn't turn the ball over a ton, which I think has been a big deal for Michigan defensively. This year, they've done a very good job of speeding teams up and just forcing turnovers, and you didn't see a lot of that from Wisconsin the other day. So I think that combination is what obviously helped keep them in the game and put them in a position at the end to win. But yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise, as you said. I mean, Wisconsin was, I think, 2-2 in Big Ten play coming in. They weren't anything great, but yeah, I mean, that's you knew, like you said, you knew a loss was coming at some point. You obviously didn't prefer it to come on Saturday and at home, but it is what it is. And it's this weird stretch, right? Michigan hasn't necessarily been playing some of their best ball the last couple of weeks. We talked last podcast about Michigan, barely eking out a win last week. So I don't know. We'll see where things go. How they respond, I think, will be critical here, right?
And it was surprising, too, because they jumped out to such an early lead. I mean, 31-17, 14-point lead. It's like, all right, here you're at home against a team that many people expected them to win. It's like, all right, here we go. They're bouncing back from Penn State, off and running. And then that surge by the Badgers heading into halftime, they kind of just carried it over. And yeah, it's still, you just get that feeling late in the game that Michigan was going to find a way to eke one out and remain unbeaten. But yeah, credit to the Badgers too. I mean, 15 of 33 from three is pretty impressive, and you still only win by 3 points if you're Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's the thing. Exactly. If all Wisconsin was doing, Michigan was still right there. They still haven't had a dud of a game by any stretch. And I mean, typically typically that does happen for for teams at some point during a season. So we'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, this one was particularly interesting for me on MLive.com/Wolverines. You can read right now. There's a story from my time inside the film study session with Dusty May and this coaching staff. I was there on Thursday morning, to observe, sit in on their talk, preparing for this game. So I'm watching the game unfold, seeing what's happening, and it was, I'm like, oh well, I know they talked about this. So yeah, you can read that, but they certainly knew that Wisconsin, could be a problem, and the way Michigan defends, Daimara, much more comfortable, of course, inside the paint, being a rim protector than guarding guys on the perimeter. Again, the bigger problem was failing to adjust. I mean, that was the number one thing. One of the Michigan assistants said to me before we even went in the room was like, no matter what our plan is, you got to be willing to adjust if something, unexpected happens. And, when they just started catching fire, I mean, it just became shooting practice, especially for, one of their players in particular. Michigan was just leaving them open again and again. So I think that was probably the frustrating thing for Michigan fans watching the game. Like, hey, somebody guard this guy. But yeah, credit to Wisconsin. Dusty May certainly said it's about the response. Dusty certainly thinks that hitting the road now for an extended time might not be the worst thing to kind of bring the group together. And that's what they'll do here, going out to the Pacific Northwest to face Washington on Wednesday, and then Oregon on Saturday. I'll be there for those games. If you recall last year, this is when really Michigan truly took off with that West Coast trip, beating USC and UCLA. So this should be an interesting couple of games here. The women's team, since we last recorded, won 2 games in pretty dominant fashion. They went to Penn State on Thursday and won by 40. And then they came back home yesterday and beat Wisconsin 86-60. I was there. Just as big a story as the game was what happened, before, which was the honoring of Diane Dietz's jersey raised to the Chrysler Center rafters. She was the first 2,000-point scorer. They honored her, and then went out and smacked Wisconsin without Silas Swords, and didn't get any clarification from Kim Barnes-Arico after the game about her status going forward. But yeah, she did not dress for this game, and we'll see if she's available for the game Thursday at home against Illinois. So yeah, Michigan women, we'll see what they are, where they move in the rankings. They were number 9. You wouldn't expect them to fall.
When's their biggest next test, do you think?
Yeah,
measuring stick game.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Yeah, Illinois is not a bad team by any stretch, but I would say then that following Monday, Martin Luther King Day, they play in New Jersey against undefeated and currently number 7 Vanderbilt, who also won their game this weekend to stay perfect at 17-0. So there you go. That's the big one, not too far from now on their schedule. All right, let's talk a little hockey as well. Michigan, Notre Dame.
Yeah, Michigan kind of won the battle here, but lost goalie Jack Ivankovic to an injury early in the second period on Saturday night, and what ended up being a penalty-filled affair. It's Michigan ended up holding on to win 7-4, but I think emotions kind of boiled over after a Notre Dame player incidentally collided with Ivankovic and hit him in the left pad, and it looked like a lower body injury, had to be helped off the ice, and kind of chaos ensued after that. Josh Ernest, I don't know if he didn't see the play or what. He just saw his goalie down and wires trying to cross and went after the guy that hit him, cross-checked him, got a 5-minute major, and then it was just, chippy the rest of the way, a bunch of game misconducts in the third period. We'll see if there's any supplemental discipline at all, as far as I don't think there will be any from the hit on Ivankovic. The hit on Ivankovic was completely incidental. Like I've taught to many. If you played hockey, there was no intent there to injure the goalie. Like he fired a shot, caught toe picked, and when there was so little time to brace himself, like he looked like at the very end he tried to dig his edge in and stop before he ran into the goalie, but there was no time. Completely innocent play. But I get, if you're Michigan too, you're upset. Like Ivankovic's been absolutely money for them all year, has started every game, played every minute. And now Brandon Naurato, the head coach, said he's probably out for a while. And that's a huge blow to this team. I get the frustration, but it's in the end, it's not a dirty play at all. And so I get kind of where both teams are frustrated and things boiling over, but you can't, it was an innocent play. And I know people online were saying, oh, he tried to injure him, that he ran into a goalie earlier this year. It's not the same. It's like if anything, if you're a coach, you want someone that drives hard to the net. This wasn't even that type of play. It was unfortunate. It happens in hockey. It's a really tough break for Michigan, but you got to move forward now. And Stephen Peck came in and allowed 3 goals, but he also made some big saves too, because they had to kill off 3 minutes of that 5-minute major. And they did. Notre Dame came back to within one twice, but Michigan's top-ranked offense responded, kind of extended the lead and scored twice in the third period to win comfortably. And it's an important sweep, like coming back up from a 34-day break for Michigan's hockey team. But again, Notre Dame hasn't won a Big Ten game this year. They're now 0-10. So it's not like a huge measuring stick game. But yeah, it'll be fascinating moving forward now to see how Michigan responds with most likely without Ivankovic for at least a little bit.
They must not have the same coach that they did a few years ago. Notre Dame was rolling for a stretch there, but
their longtime coach Jeff Jackson just retired after last season.
Oh, okay.
So they're in a little bit of a rebuilding mode. You can tell the talent gap is pretty great. Is a big talent gap there, but it's going to take some time because like the Big Ten is competitive with. All the other teams are. At least it's very top heavy too with the top teams. Wisconsin, Michigan State, Michigan, top 3 ranked teams in the country. So it is a tough league. They play hard. Like it was a physical game. And I think that's what Michigan was frustrated too. Is like they thought that maybe Notre Dame was taking some liberties, but like if you're Notre Dame, you have to do that. You have to be physical against a Michigan team that's better than you on the ice. And Notre Dame has some pretty good size. You want to be physical. Like that's part of their game plan. It just happened to kind of boil over, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, big series coming up now with Michigan headed to Minnesota for a 2-game series, and we'll see if there's if Ernestie's going to be available. I assume it's probably going to be Stephen Peck in the net, another freshman goalie. Both their goalies or their top 2 goalies are both freshmen. So it'll be a tough spot for Peck to come in here and try and hold the team afloat here as they begin their title push, because ranked number 1 in the country, best start since 2007, 2008. But as we know, goaltending is imperative, and without Ivankovic, it could be tough.
All right, so there's the kind of winter sports update, but let's transition to football here now. A lot of news for the roster that you probably have read about on MLive.com/Wolverines. Who are some of the key players that Michigan has picked up here through the transfer portal recently?
Things have been so busy. I had to go back and look at the last day we recorded and figure out where we left off, because Michigan's they lost some guys, they've got some guys back, and they've added several guys from the portal. We'll start with the key returns that we've learned about since we last recorded. Offensive lineman Jake Guarnero and Andrew Sprague are both coming back. They both had entered the transfer portal last week. I think they were testing the water at that point to see where things stood. They have elected to come back, along with defensive back Zeke Berry and Jair Hill. So those are 4 guys with starting experience, several of them significant starting experience. So Michigan's offensive line is looking pretty good going into next year. We already talked about Blake Frazier coming back. Evan Link said he's coming back. Andrew Babalola. So Michigan's offensive line is in very good shape heading into 2026. Since we last recorded, Michigan's had several departures as well via the transfer portal. The notable names to know here: Jaden Sanders, reserve defensive back, and then 2 starring defensive backs, Brandon Hillman and TJ Metcalf. Metcalf was critical to Michigan's defense, their back end last year. Played a lot of snaps, played a lot of football. He's one of their better secondary guys in the secondary. So Michigan stands at this point, at least. It looks like they're going to lose him, although never say never at this point. Some of these guys are testing the market to see where they're at, and potentially they come back. But my guess is Hillman and Metcalf are gone. The ads, Michigan's added several guys via the transfer portal since we last spoke. Two players on special teams. Punter Cam Brown from UNLV. He's an Australian, played in 7 games as a true freshman last year at UNLV, averaged about 43 yards a punt. So some work to do there, but he is a young guy I think that Michigan views as certainly with a bright future. Same goes for kicker Trey Butkowski from Pittsburgh. We talked last week, Michigan added a long snapper from Pittsburgh. Now they get a kicker from Pittsburgh. Butkowski was their Pitt's primary kicker last year. Again, as a true freshman, 20 of 23 on field goal attempts. He was a perfect 14 of 14 from under 40 yards. He had a long of 47. So obviously he's pretty reliable within 40. I don't know about long-term leg distance, but I guess we'll find out. Michigan added a running back from Oklahoma and Taylor Tatum. Number one ranked running back in the 2024 high school recruiting class. Played as it's a true freshman, 56 carries, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 1 carry last year. He redshirted. Michigan added a key. This is my opinion. This is one of Michigan's biggest pickups to date so far. At the edge rusher, John Henry Daly from Utah, 6'4", 247. He's coming off a monster redshirt sophomore year, 48 tackles. He is expected to be back and healthy in time for 2026, but that will be something to monitor. He's a Utah native, actually started his career at BYU, then transferred to Utah. Now he's following Kyle Whittingham to Michigan. Another Utah ad here, defensive tackle Jonah Alele, 6'5", 285, started 12 games last year for the Utes at defensive tackle. It's a redshirt sophomore. More of a run stuffer, 34 tackles, 2.5 for a loss, 1 sack. He is a disruptor, though. He did force a fumble, recovered a fumble, and had a PBU. And then yesterday on Sunday, Michigan got really busy. Added a receiver from Texas and Jamie Ferenc Jr., 6'1", 185 pounds, former 4 borderline 5-star recruit out of high school. He only played in 4 games for Texas as a true freshman. He made 1 catch for 6 yards, so he didn't do a lot. Michigan clearly views him as a high ceiling guy, someone that they can bring in and certainly get some productivity out of. And then also on Sunday, they added another quarterback. I thought this was an interesting move here. Quarterback Braden Fowler Nicolosi from Colorado State. He's a 2-year starter. He's coming off his 4th year. Really productive. 25 starts at Colorado State total. He threw for almost 8,000 passing yards. Really peaked in 2023. Had a 62% completion rate. Threw for almost 3,500 yards. 22 touchdowns. 16 interceptions. He was an honorable mention all Mountain West. Good stats. 2024, he fell off a little bit. His completion percentage dipped to 60%. He only threw for 2,800 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He starts the first 3 games of the 2025 season, loses his starting job, and then leaves the team mid-October. So my presumption there is he's going to come in and be a backup to Bryce Underwood. They needed experience, giving all the departures at quarterback this transfer portal cycle. They've lost Mikey Keene. They've lost Jane Davis. So they needed an experienced body to come in, and obviously view Fowler Nicolosi as that. And lastly, Sunday night, they added another pass-catching option and tight end from Utah, J.J. Buchanan, 6'3", 225. Had a really productive true freshman year, 22 catches, 351 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 catches of 30 yards or plus, including a 58-yard touchdown catch against Kansas. He's listed as a tight end, but he really lines up as a receiver. Of his 297 snaps last year, according to Pro Football Focus, just 5 of them were in line blocking. So he's primarily in the slot and out wide. Average depth of target of 15.4 yards. He runs routes like a receiver, but he's this big guy. So it could become a mismatch nightmare for Whittingham in the offense this year.
Yeah, I absolutely love the Buchanan addition. I think that, he's kind of a chess piece that you can move in a variety of places, and he's still young, very high ceiling, just the type of target you need for Bryce Underwood. Ferenc is as well. I mean, only 1 catch last year, but again, a talented prospect coming out of high school, top 50 recruit, a guy you hope you can continue to get to develop and develop into a top tier receiver to go along with Andrew Marsh. I mean, we know how badly Underwood needs some pass catching targets, and it seems like they added a couple too. And yeah, like you said, John Henry Daly should be they needed edge rushers. He could step in and probably might be their best right from the get-go too. I mean, absolutely monster year last year. And with everything so far, I think if there's 2 positions you're feeling pretty good about now, it's probably offensive line and running back. I mean, you lose Justice Haynes now, most likely, who's under the portal, but with a 3-headed monster of Tatum, Jordan Marshall, and 5-star freshman Savion Hyder, that's a pretty big or pretty good trio there. And I still believe, even with a new coordinator, new head coach, that Michigan's going to rely a lot on their run game, and you need depth at that position. And at least now they have 3 guys you would probably feel comfortable with. It'll be interesting to see how Tatum looks coming off an injury. But yeah, as Aaron said, number 1 running back in his respective class, still young, very high ceiling too. So still a long way to go in the portal for Michigan, but so far, you're starting to see some progress, and the team's starting to take shape a little bit more.
My one worry about the two defensive ads from Utah, they are a bit undersized. Daly's listed at 6'4", and he's only 247. And then Jonah Alele, the defensive tackle, is 6'5", but he's only 285. Those are slightly smaller for what Michigan's been running out there the last couple of years. Most of their defensive tackles were north of 300 pounds, some of them significantly over 300 pounds. And then Daly's only 247. I mean, one of Michigan's lighter edge rushers are like 260. So I'm curious to see how they fit in at the Big Ten level, where you're going against bigger, stronger guys on a regular basis. Look, these guys are, quite frankly, are used to going up against Big 12 offenses, and they're used to trying to get to the quarterback and defending the pass more than the run. So how they fit the Big Ten I'm curious to see, but clearly both of them are familiar with Utah and what they're trying to run and how they're trying to do it. So clearly Kyle Whittingham is dialed into his Utah pipelines as we expected. I think last time we spoke, I said to watch out for some of the guys from Utah enter the portal, and sure enough, they've added several of them.
Yeah, interesting to hear what Ryan, you said about the running back room, because I don't know, I was seeing Haynes leave. I felt like that was a loss for Michigan, and just like a guy, I guess in the modern era here, where a few years down the line, Michigan fans will be like, "Hey, remember that guy? Who was that had all those long touchdown runs early in the year?" Because he just had the one season, and even that was cut short. So, but man, he obviously showed the explosiveness. It seemed like it would have been a nice guy to bring back, but the cupboard is far from bare at that position, I guess is the point.
Yeah, as you said, like, it's nature of the college game nowadays, right? Like, if you view yourself or you're productive like a number one running back, if you're going to stay in the college game, you're going to command that type of attention and that type of money. And right now, I don't know if Michigan had the resources to pay pay two top dollar running backs. They brought Jordan Marshall back. That was critical. Haynes clearly is asking for quite a bit. There's a feeling that he could have went to the NFL, maybe been, I don't know, day 2, day 3 guy, but that's reality of college football nowadays. You want to retain at least one of them and bring someone in that you feel like can supplement that first back. And I think Michigan feels like they have it in Tatum. He is, as Ryan said, he is coming off the injury. So I'm curious to see what he looks. But clearly there's optimism there. They feel like they have something. And Tony Alford has done a very good job recruiting the last couple of years, identifying talent. I mean, he was the one that saw Justice Haynes and brought him in and turned him into one of the nation's best backs through most of the year. So maybe he sees something in Tatum as well, heading into 2026.
And I know there's this belief out there that Michigan has all these resources and unlimited NIL budget, but like that's just not the case. You still have to budget your roster for this year, so you can't really afford to spend so much on the running back position. And then that probably leaves you need money to improve your roster elsewhere too. So they might take a little. They might regret not having Haynes at times, and you'll maybe be like, "Well, man, where are those explosive runs that we had last year with him?" But like Marshall ended up having a few big ones too once Haynes went down. So it's not ideal to lose him. I thought Haynes was incredible. I thought he was their MVP for the first half of the year. But again, I completely understand Michigan trying to kind of budget the roster a little bit and trying to address other needs, because there are definitely other needs.
And don't forget, they've got a 5-star, running back in Savion Hyder, who's already enrolled with the team. So I think there's an expectation internally, right, that he does have some productivity his first year. Now, I don't know if he's going to be turned into like the number one back right away, but I do think that he's going to get an opportunity, whether it's as a second or third back. So I think between those three, I think Michigan views themselves as having a capable, stable of running backs heading into this year.
All right, well, flurry of football activity that we just discussed, and you can continue to read about on MLive.com/Wolverines. Big basketball week, as mentioned, you can read about as well. That concludes this episode of the Wolverine Confidential Podcast. Thanks for listening.